First thing we need to do is to remove the seat. So remove the 2 bolts at the rear of the seat. I think they've done a separate video on this. Once you've got the seat removed, you can then remove the side panels, pull out the top of the panel first, and then lift the panel. Don't try and pull the bottom of the panel, or otherwise you're going to break it. And remove the 2 bolts from the rear of the seat. Again, I've got Allen keys here. You've probably got bolts or something else, but remove the 2 bolts here. Do not lose the rubbers. Turn the fuel tap off by turning the little lever so that it's horizontal. And we'll need to disconnect the fuel pipes now. You need to be extremely careful here. Both the spigots on both the pipes, the feed and the return, are plastic and very, very easy to break. Do not try to bend them to pull them off. Just very, very carefully, lots of patience. Just use a screwdriver to ease them off. You can twist them, axially twist them, but don't bend the pipe, otherwise you'll break the spigot, and the pipe, the fuel tap is not separately available, so don't break it, whatever you do. Be especially careful if it's cold weather. All the taps tend to leak a little bit, so you need to be very careful. I always just put a pot under there just to make sure it doesn't leak fuel all over the garage floor. Okay, and once you've done that, you can then remove the spark plug. And if you look at now at the top of the engine, you can see the 2 inspection covers. Now the 2 round things, the big hexagons on, are the inspection covers. To gain access to that rear inspection cover, it's much easier actually to remove that engine plate. So there's an engine plate here, and you can see I've actually removed it here. Remove the 3 nuts and then just remove the plate. You can leave the other plate on the other side. You just want to actually just improve a bit of access to the engine. And once you've done that, you can then remove the 2 inspection covers, the 24mm covers, and you can do that, and you can now see the top of the valves. Okay, so now we get to sort of a bit of a controversial point, because I sort of disagree with what it says in the manual. The manual, the clearances, in my opinion, are far too small. I think some of them are 0.15 and 0.1. 0.015, 0.01. Now, that's an unmeasurable size, and it seems to be at odds with every other bike that's got, overhead valve adjustment, tappet valve adjustment. So I tend to use a much more standard setting, which I would use on a lot of tappet bikes, and that is 0.1 inlet and 0.15 exhaust. Now, by no means don't use my settings. Feel free to use my settings, but this is just what I use. And I'm not guarantee anything. If you're not happy about that, then use the standard settings. I'm just saying this is what I use, and if you don't want to use them, that's absolutely fine. It's completely at your own risk. Let's explain a little bit about what we're trying to achieve here. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to check that the clearance between the rocker arm, the activator arm, and the valve has got the correct clearance in. Now, it is important to do that because as the engine gets hotter, that clearance is going to change. And it's also important that we do have a clearance in there so that that valve completely closes. Now, if you leave it too long, the valve, it tends to wear the gap open a bit, and so therefore the valve doesn't open properly. But it can actually wear closed, and then the valve won't close properly. So what we're trying to achieve is to make sure that this clearance between the central screw, you can see here in this picture, and the top of the rocker arm is exactly the diameter, sorry, not the diameter, the measurements that we need. And we do that by turning that central screw that you can see there. Now you see it's got like a tiny square on the top of it, and then it's got a nut around the outside. Now that nut is the lock nut. Okay, so to adjust the valve clearance, actually change the gap, is we slacken off the nut and then we turn the little square either one way or the other, depending whether we want to open the gap or close it, and then we relock it again. We need to get that clearance spot on. Okay, so now we're going to get to the tricky point, and it's important that you listen and pay attention here, because to do this wrong can cause engine damage or the bike not to run. The 4-stroke engine has two top dead centers, so there's 2 points in the cycle where the piston's at the top, and it's very easy to get the wrong one. The valves must be adjusted at the correct top dead centre, and it's top dead centre compression. Okay, so what we need to do is use the kickstart to turn the engine over, and we're going to watch, as we turn the engine over, we're going to watch the valve compress down. Now when that arm comes back up again, when the valve starts to close, that's top dead centre compression. So what we'll do is we'll stick a plunger down the spark plug hole. Once that comes up, we need to keep turning the engine up until that is at the top. Now it's vital that is the correct top dead centre. Now I often see people getting this wrong, and if you get it wrong, it can cause engine damage. So it needs to be done right. To double check we've got it right, you should be able to feel a little tiny bit of clearance in there. Normally feel a bit of tiny clearance in there. If the valve has got no clearance in there at all, then there's a possibility you're not at the correct top dead centre. Right. Okay, so as that piston starts to come up, feel it with the screwdriver very carefully, feel it coming up, and as that piston reaches the top, that's top dead centre. Now you don't have to be exactly right, just get it so that that screwdriver is up near the top, and that's the correct top dead centre, and that's the correct points that you want to measure the valves at. So go ahead, measure the valves as we described slightly earlier in the video. Be very careful, do both of them. Do the inlet first, 0.1, then do the exhaust. Okay, then you can actually spin the motor over again, get it back to top dead centre, and check your gaps are still correct. Once you're happy you've got that correct, you can refit your caps, refit the engine plate, and we can get ready to put the spark plugs back in. Now I like to put a little just dot of grease onto the spark plug threads just to ease the plug in, to stop it wearing the thread. It's soon going to burn off in the engine anyway, so a little bit of grease on there. You don't have to, a little bit of WD-40 or something like that. Put it on the spark plug and nip the spark plug back up again. Refit your tank, connect your petrol pipes back up again, refit your seat, your side panels, all of that stuff. Put everything back together again. So give the bike a little run, make sure everything's alright. If there's any horrible noises in there, or the bike doesn't want to start, go back and check everything again. Chances are you've got the wrong top dead centre.